Good evening. In the last lecture, we have seen the different types of the comparators. We have seen the definition of the comparator, then types of the comparators, that is mechanical, optical, electrical, pneumatic. Then we have seen the different characteristics of the comparator. Then we discuss the uses or applications of the comparators, where the comparators are used. Then we have seen the elements of the comparators, that is what are the essential elements of the comparators. Then we have seen the discussed the different types of the mechanical comparators, that is a dial gauge, how the dial gauge comparator works, what is the how the magnification is to be calculated. Then we have discussed the sigma comparator, how it works, what are the different parts, what is the magnification that is achieved in sigma comparator. Then we have discussed about the Johansson microketer, that is another mechanical comparator, how it works, how the what is the magnification that can be achieved in Johansson microketer. Now moving ahead, this is another comparator that is called as a optical comparator. Okay, this is a optical comparator. Now as far as the optical comparators are concerned, see, mechanical comparators has got its own disadvantages. Basically in mechanical comparators, the range of these comparators is limited. The scale system can lead to a parallax error. In mechanical comparators, many parts are moving, so that may affect the accuracy of the instrument due to friction. So these are the some of the disadvantage of the mechanical comparators, and also the magnification is also least as compared to other comparators. So to overcome these disadvantages, or you can say limitations of the mechanical comparators, other comparators are devised. One is and this is a optical comparator. Now in case of this optical comparator, these instruments depend upon the optical system alone to give the magnified image of the workpieces. So here accuracy is very high. Very few mechanical components are used in these instruments, so they are not affected by the wear. Another advantage of the optical comparator is that the provision of the illuminated scale. So here one graticule is shown, and on this graticule scale is engraved with illumination. So provision of the light is there, that's why we can take the readings in any type of the light conditions, even though the surrounding ambient light is very poor, illumination is poor, then in that case also the optical comparator can work. And the accuracy of these optical comparators is 0.0001 mm, or you can say it is up to 1 micron. Now let us see the principle of operation of a simple optical comparator as shown in this figure. So we'll discuss this now. Now as you can see, the workpiece to be checked is inserted here. This is the plunger. Okay, as discussed in the last lecture also, whatever mechanical movement is taking place at the input element or input signal is a mechanical movement, so it is sensed, the mechanical movement is sensed at bottom of the plunger A. Okay, this mechanical movement is due to the dimensional difference between standard component and the actual component. Okay, so due to that difference in the dimension, this plunger will move in upward and downward direction. The workpiece to be checked is inserted under the plunger, under this plunger A. The upper end of this plunger operates a tilting mirror. So you can see this, the upper end of this plunger is operating a mirror. This is the mirror, and it is operated by this plunger. Okay, so whatever is the movement of the plunger, that is sensed by this mirror. but this mirror is a tilting type of the mirror, because it is kept on a pivot, or it is kept on, this mirror is mounted on the knife edge. So this is the pivot or knife edge, and what is happening due to this knife edge? The smallest movement of the contact plunger, causes this mirror to tilt. So even small movement of the plunger takes place, it causes this mirror to tilt, okay, in either direction. Either it may go in upward direction or it may come in downward direction. It depends upon the whether the plunger is moving in upward direction or in downward direction. Now the graticule R, you can see this is called as a graticule R, which is in front of the eyepiece. This graticule R is the eyepiece. This graticule is in front of this eyepiece, which has a small scale, and this graticule has a small scale, and this scale is engraved photographically. So the scale is engraved photographically on it. So what is happening? The light from the light source L, so here is the source of blood, as you can see, the light from the light source L hits this prism P, and it gets reflected from the mirror M. So this light is this is source of light, it hits this 90-degree prism. So this ray of the light changes its path through 90 degree, and it hits this mirror. After hitting this mirror, this whatever is a reflected light, that will the light reflected from mirror, it forms an image of the scale. So scale is here, so this light forms image of the scale in the focal plane of eyepiece. Okay, so this reflected light forms the image of this scale, and it is in the focal plane of the eyepiece. Now a fixed reference line is provided in the same plane in which the image of the scale is formed. So whatever image is formed, that has been assisted with a reference line, that is called as an index. So an index is provided so that we can measure any movement of the scale image with reference to fixed line. So whatever movement of the scale image takes place, that movement can be easily measured using this reference line. This movement can be so whatever is the movement, that movement of the scale due to say tilting of the mirror can be checked using this fine reference line, that is called as a index. Now a light spring is provided to maintain the contact plunger against the workpiece. So here now whatever is a movement, so here as the plunger moves, as the contact plunger moves either in upward or downward direction, that motion is transferred from here to this mirror and from this mirror to this mirror. Okay, so accordingly this, as the plunger moves here, the image of the scale, okay, the image of the scale which is photographically engraved on this graticule R, that changes its position, and the change in position of this the scale, that can be measured with respect to the original or ideal position. Okay, and that can be correlated. So the amount of change in the position of the scale image, that can be correlated with this movement. Okay, so we can say that the change in the position of the scale image is directly the function of the movement at the plunger at the lower end. So this is very simple principle of working of the optical comparator. Now the magnification of this optical comparator is given by the formula magnification is equal to 2 times f divided by d into eyepiece magnification. Okay, so where f is the focal length of the lens and d is the distance between pivot and the plunger. Okay, so f is the focal length of the lens and the d is the distance between pivot and the plunger. So this is the way we can say magnify the movement which is happening at the plunger end. Okay, now there are some advantages of this so whatever we have discussed, that is written over here. There are some advantages of the this optical comparator. The advantages are optical lever is weightless, very simple, high range and no possibility of the parallax error. There is no issue of the parallax error which can happen in the mechanical comparator. Very high magnification can be obtained. Okay, and since the number of moving parts is very less, so higher accuracy is possible to achieve with using these optical comparators. So some of the disadvantages are also there. So electric supply is basically necessary, that can be considered as a limitation. The apparatus is large and expensive. Okay, so that can be the disadvantage of the optical comparator. Then sometimes this question can be asked. Write a short note on a mechanical optical comparator. Thereby you can draw this sketch. So here it is the combination of mechanical comparator and optical comparator, as you can see. So here the magnification is achieved in 2 stages. Okay, one magnification is a entirely mechanical magnification and another magnification is optical magnification. Okay, now see here, this is the plunger, okay, under which we are going to insert our jobs. Okay, then this plunger, here is a one pivot or one knife edge will be there. Then this is the lever. Okay, this is the lever, horizontal is the lever, this is the plunger, this is the pivot. So the distance between pivot 1 and plunger 1 is L1. Then distance, then there is a one more you can say plunger is there, that is called, you can call it as a plunger 2, and this is the mirror and this is a pivot 2. Okay, so this mirror is placed on the pivot 2. So here the distance between pivot 1 and the plunger 2 is called as L2. So this combination of L1 and L2 gives you the mechanical magnification or mechanical amplification, as mechanical amplification is equal to L2 divided by L1. So the movement which is happening at the plunger 1 end, that is magnified mechanically, and that acts as a output, that acts as the output of this system is the input to the plunger 2. So here magnified movement, mechanically magnified movement is the input to this plunger. So it causes the plunger 2 to move either in upward direction or in downward direction, again depends upon the dimension being checked. Okay, so accordingly, if this plunger goes in upward direction, this plunger will come in downward direction. If this plunger goes in downward direction, this plunger 1 goes in downward direction, then plunger 2 will go in upward direction. So this leverage will happen. Now whatever plunger to movement is there, that is causing this mirror to tilt. This plunger carries this mirror which is pivoted on pivot 2. So whatever is movement at plunger 1, it causes this plunger to move either in say clockwise direction or in anti-clockwise direction. Accordingly the mirror is going to tilt. Okay, and this is a second stage magnification. This is a light source is there, then condenser lens, then projection lens. So condensing the projection lens will convert the rays of incident rays into parallel rays, and they will be they will get reflected from here, and this gives now distance between pivot 2 and plunger 2 is the nothing but L3, and this is the screen where you are going to get the movement. Okay, you are going to projected scale. So here this is the screen, the distance between this screen and this say pivot 2 is nothing but L4. So this gives you the second stage magnification, or it is called as a optical magnification, which is equal to L4 by L3 into 2, because it is optical magnification. So why it is multiplied by 2? Because it is multiplied by 2, this 2 comes into picture, because if mirror is tilted by delta theta, then the image will be tilted by 2 delta theta. We have already seen the principle of working of attocalorimeter, isn't it? There also we have seen if the reflecting surface gets tilted by theta, then the reflected image gets tilted by 2 theta. Same principle is used. So the overall magnification of mechanical optical comparator is given by 2 times L2 by L1 into L4 by L3. So the overall magnification of the mechanical optical comparator is product of mechanical magnification and optical magnification. Okay, so this is the mechanical optical comparator. You can see so simple. Then third one is a pneumatic comparator. So many times this type of the comparator is used. Before going to this direct going to the Solex pneumatic comparator, we will see some background of these pneumatic comparators. So pneumatic or air gauging uses the variation of the flow or pressure in a pneumatic circuit caused by restriction of a flow from an orifice to measure the changes in dimension. So this is the principle of working of any kind of pneumatic comparator. So what is that principle? It uses the variation of the flow or pressure in a pneumatic circuit caused by a restriction of a flow from an orifice to measure the changes in dimension. So obviously in comparator we are just comparing the dimension of the actual component with the master component or standard component, and that dimensional difference is very less, so we have to measure that dimensional difference. Okay, so dry compressed air, what is done? The dry compressed air at regulated pressure is made to escape through the space between orifice and the gauging head. Okay, so you can see here, this is one of the pneumatic comparator, and variation in the flow or back pressure due to change in the dimension of the workpiece is measured to indicate the variation in workpiece size. Okay, now rate of the flow from the gauging head. So suppose this is a one Solex pneumatic type of the comparator. So here there is a compressor, this is the filter. Many times this question is asked. Solex, write a short note on Solex pneumatic type of the comparator. So here you are using the filter, Then this is orifice. Then this is called as a water tank. This is the deep tube, manometer, then gauging head. This is called as a gauging head, and this is the actual job. Okay, now what is done in this case? Here, as you can see also, um, the dry compressed air is made to pass. So from here, this is the compressor, it is going to provide the compressed air. This air has to be filtered. There should not be any kind of dirt, etc., etc. So the air is filtered, and that air is made to pass through this orifice. Okay, so this is the called as a control orifice is there. Now this air, now the pressure of the air, which can be regulated by using a deep tube. This is the deep tube. Okay, the length of the deep tube decides the pressure of the air which is passing ahead, or which is passing through this orifice. So the pressure of the air passing out of the orifice can be controlled by changing the length of this deep tube. So length of the deep tube is going to decide the pressure of the air which is coming out of this orifice. So H is the now whatever is the excess air is there, that comes out of this say deep tube in the form of bubbles. Okay, now what is happening in this Solex pneumatic gauge? So as I told you that excess whatever is excess air is there, that gets leaks out of the deep tube, and bubbles will come out. Now air at regulated pressure, now the air which is coming out of this orifice, it is at regulated pressure. Okay, and it passes through this controlled orifice and escapes from the measuring orifice. So this is the gauging head, or it is also called as a measuring orifice, isn't it? So this tube is this is a measuring orifice, and this this gauging head, two small apertures are kept here, so that the compressed air will escape from here and here, isn't it? And this compressed air will try to go out of these two apertures. Now here the component whose dimension is to be measured. Okay, this is the component, this is the job whose internal dimension is to be measured, has to be placed around this gauging head. Now as this component is say surrounding this particular gauging head, it will cause the restriction to the flow of the air which is coming out of this gauging head. So this control, so there is a gap between now the actual component surface and the gauging head. So this gap is going to produce the restriction on escape of this supplied air. Okay, now this restriction to the flow of the air, it causes the creation of the back pressure in the circuit. So since the restriction is there to the free flow of this air, it causes the back pressure in the circuit, and this back pressure comes here, and that back pressure is exerted on the liquid in this manometer tube. So this manometer tube is there. Okay, now this back pressure in the circuit it can be indicated, the back pressure in the circuit can be indicated by the head of the water displaced. So how much amount of back pressure is created, that can be directly read out using the head of the water displaced on this manometer tube. So this is the as you can see, this is the manometer tube and scale is provided. So depending upon, this is the measuring jet, and restriction is there, and restriction to the flow of the air is here. So back pressure is coming, and that back pressure is being exerted on this manometer tube, and this, with the help of this scale, we can easily correlate the amount of the back pressure, and this amount of now the manometer tube can be graduated directly to measure change in diameter of the workpiece. So we can say that the amount of restriction or the amount of back pressure is directly the function of amount of back pressure generated in the circuit is directly the function of the gap between the measuring gauging head, this gauging head, and this surface and this surface, this surface and this surface. So this gap is going to decide the amount of the back pressure, and this gap itself is the function of the actual dimension of the job. If the dimension of the job is more, this gap is going to be more. If this gap is going to be more, the amount of back pressure created will be less, and accordingly here the head of the water is going to be water displaced, accordingly it will be there. Similarly, if the dimension of the job is less, then in that case this gap will be less, so more amount of back pressure is created, and that will be again indicated by this by the amount of water head head of the water displaced on the manometer tube. So this is very say accurate method of say checking the dimensions. So this instrument can also be used to check the concentricity of the hole. So we want to check, this is the hole, suppose this is the hole that we are checking. Here we are only checking the dimension, whether this internal diameter is correct or not correct. Okay, so accordingly what we can do, apart from this checking the say this linear or linear dimension, we can check whether this hole is a concentric or not. So what we can do, how to check the concentricity of the hole? The concentricity of the hole can be checked. You have to just revolve this gauging head, in the hole, and if there is no change in the reading, then it indicates that the hole is perfectly round. So you have to just revolve this gauging head through say 360 degree, and you have to just watch whether there is any kind of change in reading happens or not. If no change is observed in this reading, it means that at every position this gap is constant. This gap is constant means the internal diameter is okay at all the position. That's why the hole is concentric. So that kind of say characteristics can be found out. Then one more thing we can do is with this pneumatic gauge, we can check whether this hole is tapered or not. That can be checked. So tapering of the hole can be determined by taking the readings at different points along the length and noting the difference in diameter. So we have to check whether this hole is say tapered or not. So what we can do, we can place the measuring head initially at say top position. So at this top position, note down the readings in the manometer. Then take the measuring head at the say center of this hole. Okay, and again take the readings. So at second position you are taking the reading. Then take the third reading by taking this gauging head to say the bottom of this say hole, and note the readings here also. And we have now three sets of readings are there at three different positions, and we have to just compare these three readings. If all these three readings are within say permissible limit, we can say that the whole is perfect, or if the variation is too much, then we can say that the whole is having taper, some kind of taper. So this kind of characteristic can also be, or this type of the geometrical tolerance can geometrical dimension can also be measured. This type of the gauge is designed to measure the diameter to an accuracy of few microns. So same sketch, you can draw any sketch. Same, this is actual, these are the two different sketches are there, but you can draw anyone, the basic thing is same. Okay, so whatever we discussed, that is written here. Apart from this, before going to the say next comparator, there are some advantages and disadvantages of the numeric comparator. So let us first discuss the advantages. First advantage is that there is a practically no wear of the gauging member, as it doesn't come in contact with the test piece. As we have seen, there is no contact between the gauging head and the workpiece, so there is no issue of the wear and tear of the measuring instrument. That is very important. Then here the number of moving parts are very less, so more and more accuracy is there, because less friction and less inertia is there. Measuring pressure is small, that is another say advantage. Now we are using the compressed air, that's why the jet of air helps in clearing the dust, if any, from the part to be tested. So if there is any kind of the dust which is inside the part, that dust can be removed using the jet of air. Very high magnifications are possible. As I told you, very high magnifications are possible. The indicating unit can be located far away from the measuring units. So these advantages are not written in this PPT, but I am just telling you. So indicating unit can be isolated from the actual measuring unit, and then suitable for long small diameter holes. Okay, and it is the one more advantage is that it is the best method of determining the ovality and taper in circular bores. So apart from checking the linear dimensions, it checks these geometrical dimensions also, that whether that particular bore or particular hole is, whether it is a oval, whether it is a taper. So this is the best method. Okay, so these are the some of the advantages of the pneumatic comparator. There are some disadvantages also. So it requires auxiliary equipments like pressure regulator, so that is one thing. Okay, when using a glass tube as indicating device, it is necessary to use high magnification to avoid errors of reading. So we are familiar with this taking the reading using a manometer. So everybody faces to take the reading using the manometer, isn't it? So magnification device is required to avoid the error of reading. The apparatus is not portable because you need a compressor, isn't it? It is not portable, and different gauging heads are required for different dimension. As I told you, the different gauging heads. So if you want to check the holes of different diameters, then you have to use the different gauging heads. So these are the some of the disadvantages of the pneumatic comparator. Now I think the last comparator in your syllabus is a electrical comparator. So in electrical comparator we are going to learn the LVDT, that is a linear variable differential transformer, that is a LVDT. So what is LVDT? LVDT is a mutual inductance type transducer. It is a mutual inductance type transducer that converts any kind of linear displacement into electrical signal, and that electrical signal, so it can be used to measure the pressure, displacement and force. Okay, now let us see what are the how it works, or what are the constructional features. Now the LVDT linear variable differential transformer, as shown here, it consists of 3 coils are there. As you can see, these are the 3 coils, that is S1, P and S2. These are the 3 coils that are wound on a non-magnetic core. So this is a soft iron core is there, and these 3 coils are, so this is the core. You can see this, both the diagrams are same. This is a very simple diagram. This is a non-magnetic core is there, and around this cores, this is the primary coil, and these are the S1 and S2 are 2 secondary coils. So these 3 coils are wound around this non-magnetic core. The inner coil, that is the primary coil. This primary coil is the inner coil. It is connected to this. It is connected to alternating current, that is a AC supply, whereas the 2 outer coils, that is a S1 secondary coils windings are identical. These S1 and S2 are identical coils are there. That is they have same number of turns, and they are symmetrically located on 2 sides of primary. You can see here, this S1 and S2, they are symmetrically located on opposite sides of primary, isn't it? So they are symmetrically located. These coils are connected in series. All these coils are connected in series, as shown in figure. Now a ferromagnetic core called armature. So you can see here, this is the ferromagnetic core is there. Okay, that is called as armature, that moves freely inside a tube. So the ferromagnetic core moves freely inside the tube. This core is connected to input signal which is to be measured. You can see here, this core is connected to the input signal to be measured. Okay, so here there is going to be any kind of input signal. Suppose you want to measure the dimension of any component. So first place the master here and make sure that here, so that will be the ideal condition, and replace the master component by the component to be checked. So due to the difference between the dimension of the master component and actual component, this tube will move. Okay, so input signal is nothing but the displacement. Okay, and this displacement will cause this tube to move in this iron core or ferromagnetic core. So this core is connected to input source which is to be measured. This, whatever is this input signal, it may be generated by the primary transducers like spring, bellows, Bourdon tube, etc. That senses the variable to be measured and converts it into displacement. So whatever displacement is there, that has to be. Now when AC current is supplied, AC current, you can see here, even AC current is supplied to the primary winding, the magnetic flux generated by the coil is distributed by the armature to the 2 secondary coils. As you can see, this, as I told you, this primary is connected to AC. So this primary coil, as the AC is supplied, alternating current is supplied to this primary winding, the magnetic flux is generated by the coil, and it is distributed by the armature to these 2 secondary coils. Okay, S1 and S2. And due to this, the voltages are induced. The voltages VS1, voltage VS1 is induced in coil S1, secondary coil S1. Voltage VS2 is induced in secondary coil S2. Okay. Now as we know that the secondary windings are this, both these windings, secondary windings S1 and S2 are identical and they are placed symmetrically with respect to this primary coil. It is called as a null position of the armature. So we can say that this is the null, whatever this ferromagnetic core, that is armature, it is at the null position. Why? Because S1 and S2 both are symmetrical with respect to primary coil, both are identical, both have same number of turns. So that's why it is called as a null position. Both are at same distance from the from this core. Okay. Now the voltages generated at these two windings are equal. Since both turns are equal, both are at the same distance from the core, that's why same amount of voltage is induced in both these coils. So in this case Vs1 is equal to Vs2. So we have to, when standard component is placed here, remember, when standard component is placed here, the difference between Vs1 and Vs2 is 0. Okay, the armature is exactly at the center position from S1 and S2. That's why it is called as a null position. So difference between Vs1 and Vs2 is 0 or nil. That's why or null. So that's why it is called as a null position. And the voltages Vs1 and Vs2, they cancel each other. So the voltage at the output terminal, this here, is 0. Now if the armature moves towards S1, let us assume that this armature is there, that is ferromagnetic core. As it moves towards S1, okay, so the voltage Vs1 at S, so the voltage generated in secondary coil S1, Vs1, that gets increased. Why? Because the armature has moved more towards S1 and it has moved away from S2. So here the voltage induced Vs1 is greater than Vs2. So this results the net voltage, the net output voltage as Vs1 minus Vs2 at the output terminal, isn't it? So that difference is going to be there. In previous case it was a 0 or it was a nil, isn't it? Now the core has moved towards S1. So why this core has moved towards S1? Because there is some kind of dimensional difference is there. So because of the dimensional difference, this core can move either towards S1 or it can move towards S2 depending upon the dimensional difference. Similarly, when this armature moves towards S2 because of the dimensional difference, now in the second case this armature has moved towards S2. So in this case, since the armature has moved towards S2, here the voltage induced here in Vs2 is more than the voltage induced at Vs1. So there will be again net output voltage will be there. So this difference in the output voltage, can be correlated with the displacement here, the displacement which is happening at the input signal. So input signal, the change in the input signal causes the voltage the voltage difference here at the output to be changed, isn't it? So we can directly correlate these two values. Difference in the output voltage can be correlated with the difference in the or the change in the dimension. So again this is the LVDT or linear variable differential transformer. So it has got some advantages. First advantage, there is no physical contact again between the core and the coil structure. So no question of friction is there. There is no need for the intermediate amplification. The sensitivity of the transducer is very high. Repeatability is excellent. Good linear output is there. Okay. So these are some of the advantages are there. Then limitations, relatively large displacements are required for appreciable voltage output. So if you want appreciable amount of voltage output, there should be large voltage output is there. They are sensitive to the strong magnetic fields. However, shielding can be provided for this. Okay. So these are some of the disadvantages of the LVDT, that is a linear variable differential transfer. So whatever we have just discussed, that is written in the coming PPTs. These are the some of the comparators that we have discussed today. So summarizing, I will just summarizing what we have seen or what we discussed today. So we have today the first comparator that we have seen, that is optical comparator, the principle of working of optical comparator, how it works, what are the components. Then a second comparator we have seen, that is a mechanical optical comparator. So it is combination of both say mechanical and optical, and its magnification. And then third comparator we have seen or discussed is a Solex pneumatic comparator, that is a pneumatic type of the comparator, how this type of the comparator works, what is the principle of working of the pneumatic Solex pneumatic comparator. It works on the principle of the back pressure in the circuit. Okay. And the last comparator we have seen is the electrical comparator, that is a linear variable differential transformer. So LVDT we have seen. So these are the some of the comparators. So with this we have ended the concept of the comparators. Okay. In the next lecture we are going to start with the measurements of the thread forms. So we will stop here today. We will continue with the next lecture.